Let me ask you something. What if the disease you're most afraid of in old age, the one that stole a parent or grandparent from you, is actually being shaped right now by what you do this week? Here's what nobody tells you. Parkinson's usually shows up in your 60s or 70s, but the damage inside your brain can start 10 to 20 years earlier. And this isn't rare. It's the fastest growing neurological disease in the world, affecting over 10 million people globally and more than 1 million Americans right now. Here in the US, the lifetime risk is about 2% for men and 1.3% for women. Roughly 1 in 50 of us will face this. So the choices you're making in your 40s and 50s may matter more than anything a neurologist can prescribe later. I'm Dr. Zaid Fadul, CEO of Bespoke Concierge MD. Over the next 10 minutes, I'll walk you through the 7 lifestyle factors with the strongest science behind them, the ones shown to lower your Parkinson's risk or push those first symptoms years down the road. No hype, no supplements to sell you, just real evidence translated for real life. This is exactly the kind of plan we build inside Bespoke, but you can start today, right here with me. Stick with me to the end because habit number 6 was just linked to Parkinson's risk in a major study, and nobody's talking about it. Okay, let's dive in. Parkinson's happens when brain cells that make dopamine slowly die off. That's where the tremor, stiffness, and slow movement and balance issues come from. Here's the good news though, and it's huge. Twin studies suggest only about 20 to 30% of your risk is inherited. The rest comes from your environment, behavior, and how your genes respond to your lifestyle. Even people with high genetic risk can cut their Parkinson's risk by roughly a quarter, sometimes more, just by following a healthy overall lifestyle. Your DNA loads the gun, your daily habits decide whether the trigger ever gets pulled. So which habit matters most? The answer has more evidence behind it than any drug we have right now. So is exercise really the best way to prevent Parkinson's? Short answer, yes, hands down. Of every modifiable factor studied, physical activity has the strongest evidence for lowering Parkinson's risk. One massive study followed more than 500,000 people for years, and moderate to vigorous exercisers had a clearly lower risk. The most active adults have about a 20% lower risk than the least active. That's enormous. Here's a prescription. Aerobic exercise that gets your heart rate up 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Strength training for big muscle groups 2 to 3 times a week. Balance and flexibility work 2 to 3 times a week. Why does it work? Exercise boosts a brain protective protein, improves how your cells produce energy, and lowers inflammation, keeping dopamine neurons alive and firing. Busy Gen X parent or millennium glued to a laptop, this is your highest yield habit. Not just walking the dog, real, challenging movement most days. For a review of the best exercises to help prevent Parkinson's, check out my video linked above. A personalized exercise prescription is one of the first things we build with every Bespoke member. You cannot out-train a bad diet though. So let's talk about what's on your plate. Patients always ask, Doc, is there a Parkinson's diet? Not one perfect one, but 2 patterns keep showing up. The Mediterranean diet and the MIND diet. Both come down to lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, olive oil, regular fish, way less processed food and red meat, and easier on the dairy, because heavy milk consumption is linked to higher risk of Parkinson's. Caffeine surprises people. Coffee and tea drinkers consistently show lower risk, with the stronger signal in men in particular. If you tolerate it, 2 to 3 cups a day fits beautifully into a healthy pattern. I did a full deep dive on this with my colleague Dr. Edney, the exact foods, swaps, and meal patterns most likely to protect your brain. The video is linked above. One warning, regular NSAIDs like ibuprofen have been linked to lower Parkinson's risk in observational studies, but do not start popping daily ibuprofen on your own. There are real risks for your stomach, kidneys, and heart. That's a conversation for your doctor, not a YouTube video. You can eat clean and train like an athlete, but if you're sleeping 5 hours and barely seeing friends, you're still leaving huge risk on the table. Here's why. So, do sleep, stress, and loneliness matter? Yes. And honestly, this section surprises almost everyone I talk to. Let's start with sleep. The sweet spot is about 7 hours a night. Not 5, not 10, 7. Both short sleepers and long sleepers tend to have higher Parkinson's risk. In one large study, people who hit that 7-hour window and also got regular exercise had the lowest risk of everybody. Stress is trickier to measure though, but it's tied to the exact same inflammation and brain changes we see in Parkinson's. Mindfulness and stress reduction practices, even simple ones, can actually lower that inflammatory tone in the body. So it's a very plausible way stress management can be protecting your brain. And the big one, the one almost no one talks about, loneliness. A major study published in a top neurology journal found that people who reported being lonely had a higher risk of developing Parkinson's over 15 years. And this held up even after they controlled for depression, genetics, and other health habits. On the flip side, regular social connection was linked to about a 21% lower risk. I will link a conversation with Dr. Tasha Powell, a concierge neurologist who focuses on prevention as well as treatment. We reviewed the daily habits to prevent Parkinson's, including sleep, stress, connection, circadian rhythm, things that actually move the needle for Parkinson's prevention. This is also exactly the kind of thing we tackle one-on-one inside Bespoke. Your member visits aren't rushed, so we can actually build a sleep and stress strategy that fits your life. Your habits matter, but so does your environment. And some of the biggest Parkinson's risks, they're hiding in your garage, your tap water, and your daily commute. The strongest environmental risk factor is pesticide exposure. Certain chemicals used on farms, lawns, and gardens are linked to substantially higher Parkinson's risk. Next, chlorinated solvents, especially TCE, found in degreasers, paint removers, glues, and carpet cleaners. It's been detected in a significant chunk of U.S. drinking water supplies. And one more, fine air pollution from traffic and industrial areas, which continue to show up in study after study. What can you actually do? Wash your produce very well. Ventilate and protect yourself around strong solvents or pick safer products. Live near heavy traffic? Look into indoor air filtration. I made a full video on how to build a clean air safe room in your home using HEPA, carbon filters, and simple seal-up tricks. If you live near a freeway or an industrial zone, I would focus on that. Toxins aren't the only thing that can damage the brain from the outside though. Sometimes it's a single hit or 1,000 of them. Let's talk about head injuries. When most people picture Parkinson's and head trauma, one name comes to mind. One of my personal heroes, Muhammad Ali. Diagnosed at just 42 after a career of absorbing thousands of punches, Ali became the face of the question everyone keeps asking. Can hits to the head actually cause Parkinson's? Here's what the science says. A single traumatic brain injury, especially one that knocks you out, can raise your risk of Parkinson's by about 50% later in life. That's from large, well-designed studies. And it's not just severe injuries, even a mild concussion counts. Multiple concussions make it worse. One major study found that people with 3 or more concussions had a substantially higher risk of Parkinson's and dementia than people with just 1. The more hits, the bigger the risk. So why? Head injuries trigger abnormal protein buildup in the brain. Tau tangles from the impact itself at alpha-synuclein clumps, the same protein that defines Parkinson's. Those two processes appear to feed into each other, damaging the dopamine-producing neurons we talked about earlier. Now, back to Ali. His neurologist at Emory, who cared for him for over 20 years, published a viewpoint in JAMA Neurology concluding he had young onset levodopa-responsive idiopathic Parkinson's disease, not purely trauma-induced Parkinsonism. But his own family has long suspected a combination of repeated head trauma plus pesticide exposure from his Deer Lake training camp. And that's actually the most honest takeaway from the science. In real life, it's rarely one thing. Genetics, toxins, and head trauma stack on top of each other. This matters way beyond boxing, football, soccer headers, hockey, MMA, military blast exposure, falls in older adults, even a bad car accident in your 20s. Repetitive head trauma is also the cause of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which overlaps with and can accelerate neurodegenerative disease. So here's a practical move list. Wear your seatbelt every time. Helmet up for cycling, skiing, motorcycles, contact sports. No exceptions. If your kids play contact sports, learn concussion protocols cold and respect return to play rules. Fall-proof your home as you age. Rugs, lighting, grab bars, clear pathways. If you've had a concussion, take rehab seriously. Don't just walk it off. You cannot undo the hits you've already taken, but you can absolutely protect the brain you have from the next one. And you can stack the other 6 habits in this video to give yourself the biggest buffer possible. Now, you probably heard that smokers don't get Parkinson's. Is that actually true? Let me clear it up next. Full transparency, yes, some studies do show a lower rate of Parkinson's in people who smoke. That's real. But, and this is a massive but, smoking cannot be recommended as prevention. The harms are absolutely crushing. Cancer, heart disease, stroke, lung disease, no small brain benefit is ever going to outweigh that. And alcohol? Light to moderate drinking shows a weak signal of lower risk in some studies. But alcohol also raises your risk for several cancers, liver disease, and messes up your sleep. So no, this is not a reason to start drinking or to drink more. Bottom line, don't chase these paradoxes. Stick with the habits that win on every single measure: movement, diet, sleep, connection, and avoiding toxins. What if Parkinson's already runs in your family? Are you doomed? Not even close. And what's happening inside your gut? That might actually be part of the answer. Let's say a parent or a sibling has Parkinson's. Your risk is higher than average. No sugarcoating that. But higher risk is not a guarantee. And here's something really important. Lifestyle changes tend to have an even bigger absolute benefit in people with higher genetic risk. You actually have more to gain, not less. And then there's the gut. This one is fascinating. People with Parkinson's often have a different gut microbiome, fewer of the helpful bacteria and more of the inflammatory ones. That inflammation can spread throughout the body and may even allow harmful signals to travel from the gut up to the brain along nerve pathways. I made a whole separate breakdown on the gut microbiome Parkinson's connection, how it actually works, what the vagus nerve has to do with it all, and what you could realistically do about it through food. We don't have a proven probiotic yet that prevents Parkinson's, but the same Mediterranean-style high-fiber diet that protects your brain also feeds a healthier gut, so it all connects. Let's bring it home. Let me turn all this into a simple, doable playbook, and let's talk about how to actually make it happen in a real busy life. Here's what the best current evidence says actually moves the needle. Train at least 3 times a week with real effort, aerobic strength, and balance. Eat Mediterranean or mind style, plants, whole foods, healthy fats. Go easy on dairy and ultra-processed stuff. Keep caffeine moderate if you already tolerate it. Aim for about 7 hours of sleep, and please treat sleep problems early. Don't just push through. Protect your social life. Loneliness isn't just painful, it's a real risk factor. Reduce your exposure to pesticides, strong solvents, heavy air pollution, and head injuries. And if you have a family history, lean in harder. Your upside is actually bigger. Here's the bottom line. A rushed 15-minute annual physical is never going to build and manage this plan for you. It just can't. And that right there is exactly why I founded Bespoke Concierge MD. As a member, you get unhurried visits, direct phone and text access to your physician, a deep dive into your personal risk, including family history and environmental exposures, and a fully personalized brain protection plan that covers exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress, and advanced lab work, the whole picture. If you want a physician who will actually help you protect your brain for the next 30 years, our virtual primary care practice is available nationwide. Your future self will thank you. If you're looking for the best exercise routines to prevent Parkinson's disease, the video on the right is a breakdown of the different types of exercises and routines to focus on. The playlist on the left covers Parkinson's disease topics in detail, like prevention, treatment, and where the science is going. And hit subscribe. I publish evidence-based medical content every week that could change your life. See you in the next video.